What's up, Zach here, and today I've got the all-new Nike Jaw 2. I gotta say, from what they looked like online, I am pleasantly surprised at what they actually fit, feel, and play like. So let's get into them. Now, starting off in the uppers, these are really Jekyll and Hyde to me, I think, depending on which colorway you get, because in the middle of the shoe, it really is just a pretty simple, basic textile weave in there. The tongue really doesn't have much padding to speak of at all, except at the very proximal extent of the tongue, right where, kind of contacts your ankle. However, it is gusseted very high. It does have a nice aggressive gusset, so the lockdown on these, surprisingly, right off the jump from first lace, these things had zero heel slippage, which was really nice to see because the padding around the ankle collar, yeah, I mean, it is significant, but it's nothing crazy. These also have a double thickness heel counter, which I really am glad Nike is starting to put on most of their basketball models because it does make the shoe quite a bit more stable while not adding a ton of bulk and weight. I'm really glad they actually started doing that. I know it does look like a small tweak to the shoe, but it does add so much torsional stability to the rear foot of the shoe, which is nice. It does complement the midsole really well. Now, like I said, going back into the shoe, you do get a actually pretty high most proximal lace eyelet. You do not get a runner's knot, but like I said, they do lock down very, very well, which is nice. And I didn't have lace irritation, which I thought I would because, like I said, the tongue just really isn't padded at all. But the thing is all that material going into the forefoot, like I said, it is just this basic textile meshing. There's really nothing special about it. But then at least on this colorway, you get a covering around the entire periphery of the shoe of TPU meshing, which is very strong, at least a blunt containment. If you look at this thing on the upper durability test, 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper, I mean, woof. The burr just pummels right through this stuff all the way kind of almost through to the underside of these uppers. So to abrasion, is like I said, if you're a dragger, slider, especially on outdoor courts, these things are really going to start to look pretty weird. Now, if you look at this thing on the breathability test, this is, like I said, with Nike, what we're getting used to seeing. You only heat it up 106.2 degrees. And there is, like I said, there's a layer of padding in that gusset. And then there's that other layer, like I said, of really non-premium material in the uppers. And then that TPU meshing, remember, that's backing another layer on top of the upper. So there's a lot of material on there. So even for that, like I said, when I had my hand over this, I mean, just heat was just blowing out of the top part of that shoe. So there is a wide area of this shoe that you're getting a lot of heat egress. Same thing on the breathability test. It actually takes a second, but fog does start getting out of the forefoot of the shoe. It does not get out anywhere around, like I said, where the mesh backing is. But the one thing about that central stitching right in the center of the shoe is like I said, it seems like it's kind of sewed in haphazardly. I didn't cut any of this over here, and it just looks like, it's not completed almost. And then where it's stitched into the outside of the shoe, where, like I said, it's, pretty stout, that connection point there, it almost seems a little bit loose to me, like the stitching just wasn't as strong. So I do worry about the connection between the center material just maybe being a little bit more, I guess the word is just cheap, versus the outside of the shoe, which, like I said, at least in this colorway, is very, very stout. So even though the containment was really good, I do wonder in terms of build quality of the center portion of this shoe, if it already looks like this, and this is just out of the box, what's going to happen down the road? But getting into the midsole teardown, this was an interesting one. Now, Nike says this is a full bed of Cushlon foam. On the microscope, it does look like EVA. It feels a little bit more dense, but it does have that kind of spring to it, a little more springy than Phylon feels, so I'll go with that. It does have a top-loaded, at least for Nike, double thickness shank, so I'll give them that on the shank score. Then it has that thin, horizontal running zoom air unit in the forefoot. What I've noticed is on this one, as well as some other shoes with this configuration, is when you bend the shoe, it does sometimes want to bend the shoe proximal to that zoom air unit, kind of between the zoom air unit and the top-loaded shank. So an orthotic fixes that if you really want a true, bend in the forefoot. But remember, that zoom air unit is in there to make the forefoot more of a springboard. So to some people, that'll be a feature. To others, it'll be a bug. Others won't care because they'll have an orthotic in there. Speaking of that zoom air unit, though, you look at the bounce height test on this. Like I said, in the rear foot, 36 centimeters of bounce height is what we're used to seeing in the Cushlon line. However, in the forefoot, It's got 47 centimeters of bounce height. Now, that's not uncommon for, for the zoom air units that are a little bit thinner. So remember, it's a little bit of a lower volume zoom unit, so it's going to concentrate that rebound into that one area. So if you're someone whose metatarsal heads, ball of the foot, lines up with that zoom air unit, it's going to feel pretty bouncy. I was one of those people where I really felt this underneath of my big toe joint, underneath my first metatarsal head. I could really feel the bounce. Now remember, in some zoom air units, they're a little bit tighter, right? That air tension's a little bit higher. At least in my pair, it just felt like the air tension was just a little bit higher in these. And so it definitely felt very bouncy, very, very lively. And speaking of bounce versus shock absorption, I know a lot of you have seen this in a lot of videos now, but I want to let you know that you can now go to footdoctorzach.com/sandal to get updates on my first collaborative effort in footwear with Xenon Paddle on our new Xenon Zen Sport and Recovery Sandal. We have been working at this, as you've probably seen in the videos, for the better part of a year and a half, trying to create the most advanced sport and recovery sandal or recovery slide on the market. So make sure you head over to footdoctorzach.com/sandal for updates. It is releasing imminently, and by the time you watch this video, it may already be out of the market. So make sure you go check that out once you're done watching this video. But getting into what was definitely my favorite part of the Jaw 2 and something that was a clear upgrade, at least in my opinion, from the Jaw 1 was the outsole tread. It's basically a pebbled pattern throughout the entire shoe. I mean, I guess that this is decoupled. There is some rubber in between these two tread pods, but the actual tread is in two pods. You look at it on the viewing box, you can really see that the movement of these individual tread patterns, which, like I said, on court, we'll talk about, was actually really, really nice. On the grip test ramp, they did slip at 36 degrees, which kind of, middle of the road, nothing crazy. What I noticed though on court is give them 2-3 minutes of warm-up time, get that rubber nice and warm kind of into its window. Oh man, I mean, the grip on these was number one, consistent. Number two, not super glue-like, but like I said, just very confident. And you could really, really feel the ground in these, even though you have that zoom air unit going horizontal across the forefoot. Because it's not extending too far into the forefoot, your big toe can kind of feel the ground. There is a lot of ground feel in these, even with that zoom air. So whereas in the ones, I just felt like the traction was kind of inconsistent, picked up some dust. It really just wasn't my favorite. In these ones, I don't know if it's rubber compound, because I mean the durometer is 16.75. I mean, it's not super soft rubber, or if it's the pattern, but this was just really confident, really nimble grip on there. It really was my very favorite part of the shoe, and like I said, clear upgrade from the ones. You look at this thing on the outsole durability test, 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper, and yeah, I mean, not even a millimeter of damage on this. Remember though, it is very thin rubber, and there are clearly defined gaps between all these little, lines of tread. So like I said, an outdoor court's still going to eat this up just because there's not as much surface area, for the tread. So on outdoor courts, I guess if you have the XDR, they'll be okay. But remember, the exposed foam and uppers of these also probably going to take a beating if you drag or slide. But the craziest part of the Jaw 2, I think clearly, is the speed ratio. These things come in at 3.19. Shank score of 0.3, got to hand it to them. Bumps it up to a 3.49. And I think, yeah, if you are the right person for these, if your foot matches up with these, and you do get the best parts of the top-loaded shank, right, the zoom air units lining up with you. Like I said, the flange on these, it's a lateral clip flange, right? It's made out of outsole rubber, so the stopping power isn't bad at all on these either. So honestly, yeah, they are really, really speedy shoes. Where they bend in the forefoot, like I said, is going to annoy some people. Like I said, that's easily fixed with an orthotic. But I would say, all in all, are they the same as a really fast running shoe? Because that's really, in the mid threes is where the pretty fast running shoes get to. No, but on their own, yeah, they are pretty quick, speedy, nimble shoes. And getting into the fit of the Jaw 2, and keeping in line with this video, really pleasantly surprised. Came in at 10 degrees of inflare, which is decently mellow, and 28.8 centimeters of length, 9.3 centimeters of metatarsal width, 10.1 centimeters of toe box width, and then a 30-degree inflare. So the inflare and, from the metatarsals to the toes is maybe just a hair more tapered, but to me, number one, zero break-in for my foot. I didn't feel that taper really at all because, like I said, the inflare wasn't too bad in these. So I would say narrow, medium foot and go true to size. A 2E, I went true to size. I was just fine. I really don't have cramping or break-in in these. I'd say if you've got a tailor's bunion on these, you're going to have maybe a little bit of issues breaking them, and you might want to go up a half size. A 4E, I'd probably go up one half size. You probably can go up one size in a 4E if you don't have short toes, short feet, if your arch length isn't super short, because, like I said, you want to line up with that Zoom air units. That's why I'm kind of harping on staying true to size if you can, because that's where you get the most benefit out of this. Now, in terms of the snake bitten foot, in terms of ball of foot pain, yeah, I know there's a Zoom area in there, I know there's a top-loaded shank in there, but where it bends, it needs an orthotic. If you have an orthotic in here, I think then it's okay. For heel pain, I actually do like the density of the Cushlon in this, so that you're not getting too much just crush back there and you're just kind of torquing the rear foot. Plus, like I said, it has the double thickness heel counter. So I think with an orthotic for heel pain, they're okay. Tendonitis, any sort of torsional injuries like that, like I said, I just throw a low profile orthotic in there. It accepts them well enough. And like I said, I think the orthotic gives these a clear performance benefit. So honestly, I think if you're throwing a low profile orthotic in there, they're pretty good for most things. But getting into the all-important performance of the Jaw 2, as you can see, I had a challenger yesterday evening in these. Here's the good and bad of it. The good is that with just some small tweaks, the outsole, right, and the shape of the flange a little bit, these became such a fun performing shoe. They were super nimble, super confident to play in. They actually did have some pop to them, or you could feel that Zoom air unit underfoot, especially with going up for layups after layup or rebounds. For their profile, they did an outsized job, and like I said, in terms of pivoting, hard stops, kind of sidestepping, just really fun to play in. The downside to that is this shoe is very analogous to the Sabrina 2, and to me, they both do a lot of the same things. So there's not a ton of differences between the two shoes. So it's nice that you have choice in this area of kind of more lightweight, speedy, nimble, minimalist shoes that have a little bit of pop. I would say the Jaw 2 a little more pop than the Sabrina 2. The Sabrina 2 maybe a little bit more buttery than the Jaw 2. But the other thing is that the upper construction, like I said, the periphery of it, I thought had outsized containment. But just looking at it, just, here, I do wonder, somebody that's maybe my weight, that's putting a lot of force into this shoe over hours and hours and hours, weeks after weeks after weeks, does this, does this construction maybe start to break down? I'm not sure. I'd love to see longer term reviews on this, someone that's actually playing in them for maybe, like I said, 3-4 months, really, really hard and pivoting really, really hard. I would say if you're light on your feet, right, and you're not asking that much of the shoe, you're not asking that kind of containment out of the shoe, right, like you have a little more hop step, a little more dancing footwork in these, they should be just fine. But that would be my only real concern. So I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below, like I said, especially because small tweak on this shoe and all of a sudden they were just absolutely, I just absolutely love playing these. Like I said, I gotta be honest, I was ready to hate them, especially kind of with what the experience I had with the Jaw 1. I just kind of would like a little bit more finishes in the uppers. So if you want to see what I'm talking about with the Sabrina 2, make sure you click into that video up above and subscribe down below. Respect, rubber, and foam. I'll see you somewhere in the Sneakerverse. Dude's 9.5 feet tall. Just got crossed up by a 5'8" podiatrist. Time to go back to the G League.